like, this isn't that safe. I want to recreate.
So you came back with some conviction. Like, you're like, guys.
And I wanted to recreate.
We got to look at this.
My butane hash oil, the honey oil, or the earwax, because eventually we started purging it a little bit better, and it went from honey oil looking to earwax.
Yeah.
But still, it wasn't there, and I got scared, and I was like, I want to make the earwax consistency with water, without the use of any chemical solvents.
So you became obsessed with that at that moment.
Yes, obsessed. And we went from making hash in the hot barn in Mendocino County, California, to making hash in...
So we're hearing what 2023. So you're looking at roughly 2016.
Yeah.
You've been coming through the whole thing. You came up against a bit of a wall. What's happening in your life? Where are you at? Where's the motivation? Because again, when you come here from the beginning, you've been working so hard. You've been putting all that money into your brand. Yeah, There's opportunity, but you see that big money coming in, so you go, oh shit, what now?
I saw that I was lacking control in the fact that I didn't have my own cultivation.
Okay.
That was first and foremost.
Understood.
I needed that QC control of having my own cultivation.
You know, you were with the herbal cure for a while back then. Is this before that?
There's been a,
and you're pretty hash centric at this point.
Yeah, and
your life revolves.
Cultivars. Plus, around that time as well, they made some laws that made it very difficult for me to get our product that we were making in the lab to my employees that were making it in the lab. They made it very, very difficult. You couldn't just give them a sample.
Here you go.
Metric.
And I was really trying to follow the laws to the T, because previous to this, once I got my first badge, I was like, I'm going to not do anything illegal.
You got to play the game.
Right.
Yeah. So, eventually I wanted to get product to my employees that were making it so that they could sample it. And I was looking at it like this, like, we need retail to be able to funnel these products in we could send them to like one of my retail partners,
right?
And ask my retail partner, can you sell some of our product to them at a penny?
Right.
They were like, well, that's cutting into our margin. And they would do that for us. We had amazing.
But now you're having to ask somebody to do you a favor.
Exactly.
And so you're talking really about, you knew vertical integration is the only way to go. I got to have that control all the way.
And it was even, I think, before that term came up.
Oh, totally. No, that definitely was not a thing yet.
We need this control.
It was happening, but it wasn't. There was no word for it. There was no
laws either allowing it or
disallowing it. Right.
But yeah, so we needed that control. I needed the retail. So eventually I kind of reached out there to people, and I had already been working with Brandon and Julia at the Herbal Cure for quite some time.
Yep.
They've been writing a lot of checks to me, dropping off product, and it ended up being a good fit for a little bit. Eventually they brought on some investors to fulfill some needs of theirs and of mine that I was contracted. They owed me.
Sure.
And that created an issue. They got into a fight with their investors. I was now a part of that situation, so it dragged me into a lawsuit. Eventually I won that lawsuit. I'm not going to get too much into it. I did win in a global settlement. I took back 100% of my company.
Okay.
And my brand Essential Extracts. And I moved forward. Yeah. And it definitely dropped my motivation quite a bit.
Sure.
I pivoted at that point in time to operations in California, and I started building out a pretty massive 10,000 square foot facility in the Bay Area. Which provided me some more motivation.
Sure.
Eventually those guys just didn't see the same vision in that project after the state and the city pushed us back with converting from a conditional use permit to a license. They just were not.
They never, unfortunately, the bureaucracy never makes it easy.
It took 2 years basically.
And they want it like that.
And this is the same time when social equity is coming into play, and you've got social equity applicants dealing with this same exact issue where you've now invested all this money or all this time, and you're not going to see it come back to you for quite a while because the state's not working with you, or the city's not working with you.
Right.
So we did that. We played that game. And eventually I learned that licensing deals are key in this industry. But what brought my motivation back up is building out facilities and building out research labs, even building my own research labs where I got to now play, where it didn't have to be a certain money coming out of that lab. It got to be a little bit more fun.
And you get to teach a lot nowadays too.
And that's the other thing that motivated me is the ability to teach.
I see that. I see that.
It's amazing.
Eating healthy and promoting healthy livity really keeps my motivation up as well.
Yeah.
Because, I've had unhealthy parts of my life. I've had some drug issues in my past, but in this stage of my life where I'm eating healthy and I'm promoting how I feel like people should live, not only how I feel like I should live myself, that motivates me as well. Is just to be promoting something that I feel like is positive and something I can stand behind.
Well, and I love that mention of just being in a situation where you can experiment again. Because I even remember, early hash. I remember hearing a story about, you making hash in a freezer, and it was like, what? He's making hash in a fucking freezer? Like, you know what I mean? But it was like you were out there.
Dropped that gem on John Doe Radio.
Like that. But that was, you remember that.
Well, I want to get into that because that is one of my questions. I mean, and that's honestly, that's one of the more powerful things about being a DJ.
Powerful.
I started selling drugs in the raves. Really. right. Before all this shit. Before I worked for True School,
100%.
I was selling fucking ecstasy in the raves. And the reason for that is because I watched a bunch of people in K-holes on the side of the thing eating a bunch of garbage. And I'm like, we got to change the energy.
Yeah, we got
right. We got to switch
pull up in there, with some shulgin. And we'd start seeing the fucking crowd just change, the energy change. And it's this like power trip, obviously. But I'm like, eventually I don't want to do the drug thing.
Right.
But
you were still
like
about that energy. Yeah.
Well, and it's wild too when like you go, because we used to do the same thing on Dead Tour, and we'd have like these Jesus Christ window panes and like these red sunshine window panes, and it's crazy when you bump into a bunch of people that are on the same stuff,
right?
Because they're all on that.
You just
same
lock
vibe.
in right away.
I was hitting the New York music scene in like the mid '90s, but similar to where it's just a whole room, beats. Everybody's on the same thing, close to, and it
reminds me of like I read an interview with Shaq recently, and they were like, "Why do you DJ?" And you've seen obviously Shaq's out there.
I love it.
It's hilarious, and he's like, because it's the closest thing I can get to winning the NBA Finals. Gives me goosebumps to say that. And I've never, by the way, won the NBA Finals. I can only imagine what that would actually be like.
That's cool.
But I mean, he's like that. So it's just it's powerful to draw people through an experience like that, and it's just something that I've always really respected and appreciated live performers. And Gabe and I are big live music fans and see
I go through a lot of music experience too because I don't prepare my set. So like,
you're in it too. You're watching.
You're playing the room. You're playing the room.
I'm like, damn.
Yeah, you're playing the room.
That was good. That was a good one.
And I'm like, damn it, I didn't press save on the record.
Right.
Whoops. But isn't there some beauty in that though? Almost that it doesn't get recorded. Like, isn't there like almost?
Yeah. It's like a Tool show.
Yeah. Isn't there like there's almost a poetic justice to that, where she's like.
So let's talk hash.
Let's talk hashish.
We brought the man
Hopefully
in.
don't get knocked for
we
that,
brought the man in. We need to talk about some goddamn hash already.
Let's talk about
So at this point, we've covered up pretty much till early, let's say backpack days, 2009, 2010. How do we get, because I know at this point, I'm open blasting. Live resin hasn't been invented yet.
Any of us
have either smoked some of that Moroccan hash or some of that Turkish hash, in which it was the brown or the red. How do we get to rosin?
I was open blasting in 2004.
I think I started in 2009.
I think I bought my very first honeybee extractor off the back of High Times. And predating butane hash oil, we were still making and consuming ethanol hash oil as well.
Right?
Sure.
So you're similar. Yeah, okay.
And even Bill was talking about they were doing like distilling like Jamaican hash oil. So like that was something that I remember reading about. Yeah, just had that early distillate. Yeah.
So how do you because again, you're really an integral part of that evolution. So well,
there was a fork in the road right then. Again, we were all blasting, that was happening. I remember really heavily in 2009, 2010, to me at least, there became a pretty clear fork in the road. The word, or maybe it hadn't happened quite yet, but solventless started coming in. I remember even grading systems, people started talking, 1 through 6 star, and like that was talked about a lot. But then you also had the blasters that kind of took that other direction.
So I was blasting butane on my back porch in Boulder, Colorado, 2002 to 2004.
You heard it. You heard it here, people.
And I was getting it to my friends, and because I was also making water hash back then.
Sure.
Before that too. Yeah. But it was something new.
Yeah, you were making it before that. You mentioned that earlier. So
we started seeing this. It was something new, and I wanted to play. So we were doing it. We were purging it like in this like sunroom, basically.
Right.
Like everything fully opened up.
Right.
We were doing it in the backyard.
Were you doing the double boiler tech where you had the pan of hot water?
That was at
underneath.
one point.
Yeah. Well, I've been there.
We had a number of different techniques back then. I think we even made our own makeshift vacuum oven before AI really came out. You know, in the industry. It was just like a dome with a rubber tube, and
it's really awesome to hear about that, because you think about where it's come now to $1 million C1D1 labs,
100%.
and
that's where it starts on back porches and Boulder,
there you
Colorado,
are with an
folks.
oven and a vacuum cleaner.
But again, but all that tech, I mean, you can think about it, it's like it all makes sense as far as even just light hydrocarbons. Obviously, cannabinoids and terpenes are light hydrocarbons, so like all that tech still makes sense, but it's crazy where it's gone.
So where do you go from here?
We were even using, very specific types of butane. I was running Calibri butane initially, the little mini thin cans. From there, I believe I actually started purchasing master cases of Newport from our buddy Jordan Scietetics, who now runs Terp, and he's run a bunch of other companies in the industry. But he was like one of my first butane dealers.
Is that like the five times filter?
My first gas man.
Some of the first, like more refined than the garbage rosin.
19 times X clean, something. Yeah, I remember those.
And eventually, I was still seeing my friends do this process with not so clean a butane. And that's why I was getting the master cases, to get my friends clean butane,
right,
or cleaner. And what's funny is you now see, like today, a lot of people combining butane with propane, and that's what was in the Calibri and in the Newport. It was a blend.
It was a blend. I didn't realize it was a gas
and isopropane. And so that's kind of why a lot of us thought our stuff was cleaner back then. And still today, people are using propane to pull specific things.
Yep.
Either way,
a little bit of color.
Yes. Either way, I was scared about what I was doing.
Right. You're using a hydrocarbon.
You realized you had a volatile gas on your hand. You were not.
This is explosive. This is probably not good.
That. Okay, that's a good thing.
We didn't know if it was fully purged or not when I was done with it and giving it to my friends.
So already you weren't comfortable. And again, even going back to just the raves, it's like, okay, and it's funny because I know people like this, like, well, I don't do that, but if you were going to do that, I'd rather get you the cleanest that you're going to do.
And at this point,
I was selling a lot of weed at this point.
And at this point, there's no product testing.
Guy that people look to find
and understood and understood that if it comes from you, that's a trusted name, and you had a brand. Again, going back to that brand building, so that's still part of your brand building.
I didn't have a brand yet,
but it's right. But it's still that's a part of the foundation.
This is like 2004, and
creating creating your reputation,
definitely. Which is I guess now a household brand, hopefully. But yes, so I was making butane. And this is also around that same time that I went and visited Mila in Amsterdam in those early 2000 years, and really bugged Mila. I went to her warehouse and just hit her with questions for 6-7 hours.
But at this point, you're like enamored by hash. You're like, this is.
And I was told that this is the queen. So
right.
I was just really happy that she even allowed me to come into her warehouse and smoke with her. She was out smoking me. She was smoking 3 to 4 spliffs every one spliff I was smoking.
Whoa!
And still to this day,
that's crazy.
Meals. I was supposed to see her last time I was in town, but unfortunately, she was supposed to come to Jair's party, but she was sick with COVID. Well, anyway,
I'm just
next year, Mila.
Yeah. I mean, she's what, 80 years old or something?
Yeah.
Doing road harder than me too.
Yeah.
Out smoking all of us.
Yeah.
And doing road, hitting events. I think I'm doing road.
So at this point in time, you're ready to leave BHO behind. It's freaking you out a little bit. It's volatile. You're still kind of there. Okay.
I was still making money off of it. The color was amazing, and I could not mimic that color or that viscous consistency or that viscosity.
And obviously this is way pre-rosin too. So it's like there was no option there yet.
So I actually went to Amsterdam. I studied with Mila, but on that same trip, I actually went to the Bluebird Cafe, and I reached out to a ton of different coffee shops and cafes, and nobody would tell me anything. Around 2004, by 2005, butane hash oil was outlawed in Amsterdam. By 2004, they were trying to outlaw it, so you wouldn't hear anybody talk about it as butane hash oil on the shelf.
They call it honey oil? Is that what it was called back then?
Starting to get outlawed.
Okay.
So earwax was kind of on the cusp.
What was the form it was being served up in?
A lot of in 2004, because these other terms were getting banned, Soma and other people were kind of mixing bubble hash with butane and calling it jelly.
Okay, gotcha.
I remember
something else.
Okay. I remember that.
Interesting.
And Bluebird Cafe was one of the only cafes, number one, that had soy milk or had a milk alternative for me. So I fucked with that place heavy.
There you go.
this is early 2000s.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
being a vegan wasn't really a big, and a lot of people.
I'm not a vegan, but
you have been.
No, I just can't digest dairy.
Oh,
Right,
You just can't do the milk. Just lactose.
And I can't digest anything from a cow. So I don't eat red meat. I don't eat dairy. I don't consider myself a vegan. Really, you just can't put me in a box. Just to,
Right. Yeah, understood.
But I want to make sure we all are on the same picture.
I couldn't drink regular
That's
milk
great.
with my coffee, and I wanted to have coffee with my spliff because that was a fucking thing. Still is a thing.
It's very much, especially in Amsterdam, out on the patio, coffee, spliff. Let's do this.
So Bluebird Cafe had soy milk for me, but they also gave me some of the first test results I ever saw. And what I saw in those test results for this butane product that they had on the shelf that they weren't calling butane was heavy metals.
Okay.
A lot of heavy metals and isobutane, isopentane, not the butane or the pentane, isobutane, isopentane. I remember specifically seeing that on this test result and being like, oh shit, all the things that we put in there are still in there.
Yeah,
it's not gone.
And no one knew anything about purging, vacuum ovens, none of that crap.
So I kind of like took it upon myself to come back home to the US and be like, yo, I learned some shit out there. Like, this isn't that safe. I want to recreate.
So you came back with some conviction. Like, you're like, guys.
And I wanted to recreate
we got to look at this.
My butane hash oil, the honey oil or the earwax. Because eventually we started purging it a little bit better and it went from honey oil looking to earwax.
Yeah, I got that. Yeah, I got that consistency.
But still it wasn't there. And I got scared and I was like, I want to make the earwax consistency with water without the use of any chemical solvents.
So you became obsessed with that at that moment.
Yes, obsessed. And we went from making hash in the hot barn in Mendocino County, California, to making hash in colder basements in Colorado.
Right. And then you're like, what if I just do it in a freezer?
So walk-in cooler was like the next step to that progression. We started using filtered water instead of tap water. We started using RO ice instead of regular ice.
So walk me through how we go from bud in a hair straightener with
we're not even there.
We're not there.
We're not even there.
No, we're not anywhere. We're not anywhere close.
No.
Okay.
No. In 2005, the gentleman named Compassion, spelled hash, but compassion, who is also still around today. He goes by the name of Chadwick Bastardo, Bastardo, on
Great
Facebook.
name.
He's not on Instagram, but go send that guy a message on Facebook and send him some love. You're going to know why after you hear this conversation. But in 2005, Compassion first posted on fullmeltbubble.com and on a few of the other ones, IC Mag and a few of the others, and stated that he's created a technology to clean up bubble hash.
Okay.
And he's called it rosin. Due to, the nature of the resin that he was pulling from.
Right. Okay. And that's 2005.
The term rosin just didn't exist for our world yet.
Didn't exist for us.
What was the full melt process?
What he was doing is he was taking a hot stainless steel spoon and a hot stainless steel bowl, and he was putting his raw bubble hash in the center bottom of that bowl, taking that hot spoon and rubbing it in a circular motion. Rubbing it in a circular motion. And what he noticed was the exterior of that bubble hash that he worked with the hot stainless steel started to create this ring of oil on the outside.
Interesting.
That is.
What he did with that ring of oil, he scraped it without getting any of the hash, and then he put it on one of the screens that we were using back then, and it not only created the full melt clear dome.
You're talking a normal bowl screen that a guy would use, right?
We would use these flat ones. I mean, back then we were pulling shit from the inside of our sink.
Oh yeah. I've done that before for my pipes.
100%. Yep. There were no screens in my parents' house at one point.
That's the nitty.
I'm trying to bring people back.
That's the nitty gritty, bro.
So, and one of the terms we were trying to achieve was FMCD, full melt clear dome.
Okay.
And that's when you put a flame to this or a hemp wick or whatever you were using back then, to this water hash or this oil, and it created this clear bubble-ish bubble dome. And that was as clean as you could get. But when Compassion created this crude rudimentary process of rosin, that hash was not only making the clear dome, it was melting straight
through the screen.
Yeah.
And all of us paid attention. Well, some of us paid attention.
You were paying attention.
I was paying attention, and I'm like, yo, that's cool. But that's not commercially viable. That's for your head.
Right.
And so the hash maker gets that enjoyment, but nobody else is really going to get that enjoyment. And that's how I thought for 10 years.
But you were aware of this technology, this heat and pressure
and
phenomenon
pressure creates this ring of oil on the outside that is dabbable almost.
So that's,
I mean, we're like at this time, are you thinking about how to replicate that on a large scale? Like, is that
we started thinking about it and being like, nope, we don't have enough product. Or it's going to take so much of this product to create 1 gram of it.
And it would cost so much
for $1,000.
and nobody's going to pay
market
that
for the $1,000.
So
that's what was going on.
Is that where the hair straightener steps in?
Hold on.
Hold on now. Come on now. Come on now.
It is kind of. So we did start playing with the hair straightener early on.
Who thinks of that? Who thinks of that?
To Sam in our lab.
I don't
know where Sam got the idea.
Okay.
But because I don't think it was actually Sam that originally, did it the first time, but he saw it somewhere. I don't know if there's any.
I remember,
down that path.
Yeah, I remember just as someone living at the time, I was like, "What are people doing right now?"
Taking a hair straightener and putting our bubble hash, our full melt water hash, at this point in time, we had coined the term solventless already.
And you're running hash that's high end 5-6 star hash, right? I mean,
however, we didn't use the star system.
That wasn't there yet.
It was starting to become there, and my buddy Jeff Church,
I feel like it started in Washington.
Part of bringing that out, in Washington.
Yep.
But I never agreed with Jeff. Me and Jeff were friends at that time when he released the star system. I just didn't agree with him.
Sure.
I was like, why are we going to price something merely on the melt? I have some crazy stuff as lavender that doesn't melt that well, but the flavors what everyone wants.
Lavender.
The flavors what everyone wants. So how am I going to put something on the shelf according to this star system? I, at that point in time, was putting stuff on the shelf and I had a wholesale and retail price on it.
Okay.
And that's how I created my tier system. You had, clientele, medical patients at that time come in and they could see what the wholesale and the retail price was for this product. And that would tell them how to buy it or where the melt was at or where the quality, because it wasn't just the melt. It was the melt, attributed with the flavor and the color of it and the consistency, whether it was
melt's only one piece. And that was kind of your point. You're like, you're only saying one piece of the puzzle. Yeah.
So we didn't adapt, and I still have not ever adapted the star system. Although 6 Star Society is one of my favorite hash company brands that makes merchandise.
Throw that out there. Crazy.
Plug.
Shout out.
I need another hat, bro.
Just throwing it out there.
We all need
Got
hats.
a sweat mark on it. But so I never adapted that system. We more so adapted a retail price system.
So were you you're pressing bubble hash in a hair? Were you ever pressing buds or no?
No. So
because I know people have. I used to see it.
I'm gonna get there.
Okay, gotcha.
So we were pressing, and Sam really turned me on to flattening out our full melt hash into a patty so that we could then
more surface
flag
area.
it out and dab it, and it would dab with less residue.
Gotcha.
So that's as far as we really got. I didn't realize what we had done in our lab, showing people what we were doing with that until way later on, because in 2015, 16, I believe, we did a series called The History of Rosin, part 1 and part 2. And we filmed it live in Venice Beach. And I brought in the people who I thought were really at the helm of rosin. And that's when I brought in Phil, Soil Grown. And I brought in my buddy Ben McCabe. And I brought in Edu out of Barcelona, Spain. And some people that were like really pushing the boundaries of what we thought were possible. And I came to this whole thing wanting to bring Phil into this because I wanted to give him credit for really making rosin commercially viable. From 2005 to 2015, we did not think rosin was.
You thought that was just
viable.
for the head.
Yep.
Just for the head.
It wasn't until I personally saw Phil pressing flour that I thought that this was commercially viable.
You said, hold on.
Okay.
This might be doable.
This might actually be doable. And flour rosin is what triggered that for me. And I give all the credit to Phil for flour rosin. Now, what Phil said on stage at the History of Rosin part 2 was, well, I saw the guys in your lab using a hair straightener. That's why I decided to use a hair straightener on the flour. And I'm like, oh shit, that's crazy. I had no idea.
Yeah, you're like, no, it's news to me. Yeah, that's
so
funny.
I still really give Phil the credit.
Right.
He just got a little influence from us.
I would have thought it would have been the other way around.
Excellent. Well, that's kind of I almost think his point.
That's why you're here.
Yeah.
We were
thought so
pressing
too.
full melt just to flag it out, but we weren't pressing it with extreme heat.
I know with I know with Fletcher, I've like pressed it. Like I've taken Fletcher's full melt and just pressed it in my hands, like in my palms, and smoked that. And like I never really thought about that until he showed me that, But
oh, dude, I used to do the shoe hash, man. Dude, some decent
cellophane.
Yeah, 100%, bro. Dude, this sounds terrible, but I used to go to these classes that they make you go to when you're a bad boy, and I'd fucking roll right in there with hash in my shoe, bro. My buddy likes me to be like, dude, did you have hash in your fucking shoe? Oh, God damn it. Forgot about it again. But it was good tech.
That was like some of the first ways that I learned to dry my super wet, moldy hash from Humboldt.
Right.
So keep taking us on the journey because
where are we at?
We're at Flower Rosin. You're looking at it, but you're also not at this point willing, I don't think, to take your beautiful, high-end, really well-done solventless hash and put it into a press yet. We're not there yet.
It's this because that's
all
a big step. Happening all super fast.
Actually.
As Phil puts flower rosin out to the world and really allows rosin to be commercially viable, and now people get to try it because pre 2015 nobody got to try it. It was just the hash makers.
What's the process that they're using at this time?
At this point, it's a hair straightener,
and that's how all the rosin's being made at this point.
But at this point, there's no hash rosin. There's no live rosin. It's just flower rosin that's being made.
Okay, yeah. Because I remember I didn't really like rosin back then. It hurt my throat.
Couple months, but it was not a long time.
I was about to say, but geez, that's a fast progression.
Because very soon after we started pressing hash.
Somebody got real smart. Somebody looked at a vice or something like that and go, hold on a sec. I can do this and I can do this with bigger and I can do this faster and I can do this with more pressure.
So in my mind,
I think we went from hair straightener regular to hair straightener with a vice grip. To t-shirt presses, thanks to D-Nail. Then rosin, not evolution, but sorry, hold on one second. Aqualab Technology. So Rosin Technologies was the first company to actually put a rosin specific press on the market, I believe.
Okay.
There was heated plates.
It was different than a t-shirt press.
Gotcha.
You had smaller plates than the t-shirt.
I remember
so higher
those.
pressure. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So, and now you had something that clamped down so you could really get a little bit more pressure into it rather than the t-shirt presses, which didn't have a clamp. You just had your own body weight with those initial
ones. And I felt like one of the biggest things, because up until this point, I think one of the things that always bothered me about rosin was the harshness. But all of a sudden, the freeze-dry tech, and that, in my mind, changed the game. I mean, how?
So at the same time flower rosin was coming around, that was also the same time the freeze dryer was really coming into play. And we were all scared of it because there was a ticket price of $7,500 on the scientific freeze dryers, which we, in the beginning, thought we needed the scientific one. We didn't think the home one was going to do it.
Sure.
But at that point in time, nobody had even tried it for hash until Fletcher,
the man,
Archive Seed Bank. I give credit to Fletcher for sure. He was the first person to actually buy one of these, and he puts his hash, his wet hash in there.
He says, let's see what happens.
Previous to this, we were sieving and microplaning the hash, creating more surface area, drying it on parchment paper, on baking sheet.
Yeah, I remember Rise. Yeah. Matt Rise.
In cold, dry rooms.
Yeah.
So
which wasn't
first it was the sieve, which was taught by Mila. Then it was the microplane, which I give credit to Matt Rise. I eventually actually went microplane route, even though I fought Matt for a while.
It's one of the things I appreciate about you, man. You're not.
Well, you got to be big enough to go. I thought this way one point in time.
Well, and
but
you guys,
now I've progressed somewhere else.
Dude, they were all developing the process. You guys,
as a community,
never went to the freeze dryer for a long time. Until finally, he was like, "Okay,
all right, fine."
But either way, yes. Fletcher bought a freeze dryer. He puts his fire ass hash in there and he calls me the next day or texts me the next day. We were all blowing him up because
you wanted to know.
A few of us knew that he got one.
Yeah.
Fletcher's like, don't do it. Just burned up all my hash, killed all the terps, made it like weird and dry and kind of like freeze dried food and like
brittle.
Weird. Yeah. He's like, just don't do it. I was like, okay.
All right.
Not even like, I think it was probably 12 hours later. He's like, actually, bro, we realized we can turn down the shelf temp. It comes out of the package at this like crazy
at this temp, but we actually
you can actually manipulate it.
Did he do another run?
He did, but he didn't have like data or anything. He didn't say it was
all anecdotal at this point.
When Fletcher told me, he's like, actually, I think there's some value in this. I just trusted him. We went out and bought 5 of them.
Immediately, essentially.
So you pretty much, between you and Fletch, Fletcher kind of discovered the tech, and then you kind of started saying, "Hey, he's got to be ready. Let's commercialize."
You quickly adopted
it. We adopted it, and we were one of the first licensed entities to put them in our fully protected lab. So now we could film it, and we could talk about it, because I don't think Fletcher initially, number one, a lot of us were still hoarding tech. I was a teacher. I was always putting it out there, but maybe he was trying to hoard it for a little bit because it was the newest thing.
Well, and that's understandable, by the way.
100%.
You know what I mean? And if you're not knocking that at all.
Not at all. But we were in a position where I was already bringing in very large scale nano emulsifiers from Microfluidex and some bigger companies, because we had the
kind of like fertilizer equipment, mixing equipment.
We had the protection of the license. So big companies that came from the cold brew coffee world and shit like that
would actually work with you now.
Being like, hey, we see what you're doing. And you have a license. Can we bring in this like $30,000 piece of equipment that you don't have to pay for? You're going to sign a contract that you're going to rent it for free and yada yada. So we can get some data on it. I was like, I want that data too. Yeah.
So and it's actually kind of interesting to me because
it's amazing.
And in all reality, the story that we've been telling for the last hour and a half, it all kind of comes back together, because here you are, this guy who's built a brand, who's a public figure in the cannabis world, who's now developing hash technology, and people want to help you out. People want to start helping you with equipment and helping you develop these processes which
around this time, I designed my very first large scale automated washing machine as well. That has since been, stolen out from under me. But
and this is all kind of become mainstream.
I was planning to launch that 5-6 years before any of these other companies launched it. So there's some stuff that still hurts and stings
I
this.
see
it's tough when you share your secrets sometimes.
And I see you as being someone that's constantly trying to work on that progression, constantly trying to learn, again, whether it's in the DJ world, whether it's in, our world, in the cannabis world. That's obviously part of you and who you are, and, trying to take something you like and that tickles you and go, okay, how can we make this better? How can we take that to the next step? And then I'm sure there's been times in your life, multiple, I would assume, where you have been too open with some of that knowledge.
Fuck Eddie. We're allowed to say that shit.
You can say whatever you want. You can say whatever you want. So, I mean, but again,
there's a lot more of the fuck yous to people out there, but I'm still here. I'm still doing my thing. I'm motivated. I'm fucking crushing. And a lot of those people that I'd like to say fuck you to right now, they're working at the motherfucking grocery store, working for fucking American Eagle.
No, you've had the longevity. You're still teaching classes.
What you're doing and traveling the world doing it, you're giving them a fuck you without having to give them a fuck you. I was going to say, trust me there,
let's dive.
I'm waiting for the money to actually pay the fucking
guys, the P.O. box is still open, so address is good. Send it when you get a chance, if you don't mind.
What are these girls on the OnlyFans thing? They're like, here's my cash. Can you guys put my cash out?
Yeah, we throw that up there.
Throw it up there, bro. Just put my cash out.
I was going to say, can we, let's dive into.
I'm going to dive into a couple.
I thought I was stripping.
No, you're good. You're good. Keep it on. You can keep it on. They pay for us to keep it on.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so, and again, I usually try and I've kind of tried to narrow it down to 5 questions that I like to ask everybody. We already started with what motivates you, which I always, I want to give people that time to really delve into that, because I think it's really important, because that shows people what really makes you tick. And I think that's one of the more interesting things of, as we bring different people in, it's like, what really got, and like, where did you get, where was the hook at, and all this kind of stuff. So we talked about what motivates you. We got to talk about
tech, like that I didn't create, but like Piatella tech or Piatella, that style of making hash that's probably been around for a long time, but these Italian boys in Barcelona took it to another level. And they're using the highest quality greasy hash, creating this beautiful consistency that we haven't really seen before. It's different than a Temple Ball, which was cured in a similar manner. This is a high end product that gave me motivation to just go into my R&D lab and play. I don't think my product's close to there. And I respect Uncle's Farm for saying that the only real Piatella comes from that spot. And that's initially what I thought solventless was going to be. But then it opened up so broad and everyone started using that term. I'm like, you know what? I want everyone to use this term because it's going to educate. The Uncle's Farm has a little something going on different. And I like that he's constantly posting the only real Piatella and things of that nature, because when I try to make it, mine's not as good as theirs yet. And I think there are some people that are making it to that level. And that's
saying something coming from you, because I've seen some of the most amazing rosin I've ever smoked.
I will get to that level. But I will always give credit to them.
Sure.
For that.
Well, and I think
technology.
that's a beautiful thing of that progression, right? It's like, what did Isaac Newton say? Something, if I've made it higher than others, it's only because I stood on the shoulders of giants.
Boom.
You know what I mean?
Boom.
So this whole world, this science, this life that we live, it's all a progression. So it's always funny. Oh, somebody stole that. No. They took something that was done and they built on top of it.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And it's even
if you're going to be any type of creator of products, like in the vape hardware world, you got to know that you're going to get jacked.
Well, yeah.
The second you put it out there, Alibaba's going to be selling it 2 days later.
2 days later.
You know
And that's a tough place to be in this world, no doubt.
That's just what it is.
So one thing I'm very curious about, and this is actually a 2-part question, right? And this is one of those things that all the listeners always want to hear, especially with somebody like you that does a lot of trying of many different strains and many different forms and every side. 2-part question. What is your favorite strain? But there's 2 parts to that: to grow and to smoke. And actually, as a hash maker, I might even throw in, and I don't know if there's a different one to extract.
To make rosin.
Yeah.
And I know one, like if there's a range, like if you're like, oh, it's OGs or whatever.
Yeah.
OG is definitely part of this
Because
conversation.
I know it was going to be a part.
So yeah, still to this day, 25 years later or something, OG Kush, the original clone only, is not any of the crosses.
Bay Area boy right there.
A lot of my friends produce amazing hybridized versions and crosses. I don't like any of them.
Yep. I'm
perfect.
honestly,
and I have
Nick,
like the diagonal at my house right now.
I'm with you.
Conductor, I've got all these fucking amazing crosses. It's just not the same as the clone only OG. So when I say clone only OG, I'm talking about my Ghost OG, the SFV OG, the Skywalker OG, the Hells Angels OG.
That whole class, I'm
with you 100%,
have
bro.
Very similar genomes, but over the years and being grown in different terroir with different environments.
Yeah, those different expressions. Absolutely,
you get different expressions. Things hold on to a name. I think that there are a lot of similarities between all those clone only OGs, but OG Kush is still one of my favorite things to smoke day in and day out.
Always does it for you.
Morning and the evening. Yes, it always does it for me.
To grow.
It wasn't until recently that I started getting into some of these candy flavors, the Skittles, the gelatos. I do love the eucalyptus terp of the Gelato 41 or the Baccio or that side of things.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the Runts candy side of things.
Yeah,
it's great. Yeah.
Stuff.
But it's not going to get me the same feeling as my Ghost OG.
Yeah, that OG just hits. It's like GG4 for me, man. It's like,
well, that's honestly
10 years on,
that's how I first met Nick, was when he won ADSI, the original one, the first one,
and we still grow that Ghost OG.
with the Ghost OG.
Adam Dunn still owes me a trip to Spain.
Adam,
for winning that shit.
Hey,
Adam,
you know what? I think 2024 might be your year.
Bro, I need a ticket right now.
Adam's
We could make this right, bro.
Adam.
We could make this right.
Adam's got your flight.
You know what? I'll even disregard the money you owe me for the equipment if you make this right with ADSI, Adam. We be
That was
friends,
the
bro.
promise.
I'll hug you.
We'll get Mitch to buy the ticket.
I'll hug you, bro.
I will give you a hug. Okay, strain to grow.
I'm really raw.
No, good. This is what
transparent.
That's a part of the show. The reality is we don't answer to anybody. We don't have sponsors. We have anything. We can do whatever. We can do whatever the fuck we want on here.
So strain to grow lately has been some of these like Runts crosses. This apple tarts is just beautiful that I'm growing right now. And this grapple, this grape gas times fritter from a compound research facility. My buddy OG Flary gave me this cut. So big up OG Flary on that grapple. The grapple is just such a beautiful strain to grow. And every day you can watch it get wider. Once you hit day 50, you could probably push this thing to 80 days.
Wow.
If it had enough food and enough root space.
Wow.
And it just gets bigger and bigger.
It just keeps going.
Jerin's sitting over there with his tongue hanging out of his mouth going, you have cuts of this?
It's a cultivar to strain, and yes, I do have cuts of it. And it is one of my cheaper cultivars because I want to get these things to people. The apple tarts is very similar. It just stacks and it has this beautiful transition between this lavender purple and the darker green and the lime green. And it just kind of has it all as far as appearance. So those ones I love to grow because they're just really easy to grow.
Yeah, they're
run
just
out
bangers,
of food. They just keep getting bigger. And then for solventless separation, I would say that some of my favorite things to wash are the sweet lemon tea. Thus, Shiloh helped add my name to that project. But the sweet lemon tea was initially a project between Shiloh and Brandon, where they crossed the OG Eddie Lep to the lemon bean.
Okay. Yeah, I've been hearing
to the lemon tree.
Okay.
And Brandon put it out as lemon bean. And
like
Shiloh's actually launching it right now as lemon hammer. But I have my own little pheno from some seeds that Shiloh gave me, and it's sweet lemon tea. And the reason I bring that up is because for years and years, you couldn't find a lemon rind.
I was just talking to someone about that washer
in water hash, because we had that Ohio lemon G that didn't wash at all. Then we had the lemon tree that didn't wash at all. They did okay in butane, better than in flower form. For the lemon G anyways. But now we're starting to find some of these specifically pheno hunted projects that do wash. And there's something about that limonene terpene that like really breaks down the trichome. So not only do you get that lemon rind smell, but you get a real thin, waxy cuticle.
Okay.
So
Interesting.
oftentimes you get a very, very high yield from water hash to rosin. And then even more so, you see more stability in that end rosin. So fresh pressed of lemon bean, or fresh pressed of the sweet lemon tea, or fresh pressed of the lemon hammer.
Right.
Unfortunately, there's three names the same.
I mean, it happens in this industry. We'll get there.
That's one of my favorite things, because it stays as fresh pressed for a long time.
Interesting.
Because you don't have as much wax
and you don't
to
get
oil
that
ratio.
Yep.
And that's also the reason it does higher yields from water hash to rosin. So your numbers actually increase.
Gotcha.
So that's one that I wanted to talk about. Just as kind of a rarity. And it's one of my favorite things to wash. It might not be my favorite thing to smoke, although I do love smoking it, but generally I like to mix some of that rosin with my OG flower, and I'm in heaven. In fact, that combination of mixing OG Kush with that lemon terpene, or that delimonene, is what won us a number of cups. I think we've won over 10 cups with that combination.
We
ran the OG from Verde, mixed it with some Ohio lemon G from our facility.
I'll be at your place later. You'll have to share.
An appointment later. No, that's
from 2013 to 2019, we swept some cups with that combination.
Nice. Well, and I love, and that's why I kind of love breaking up that question. Actually, it was, we were talking before, and it's like favorite strain. Well, and somebody said, well, to grow or to smoke. And it's like, that's
different.
Super different.
Well, especially with Nick.
Can be super different.
Some people are going to get on.
And for me, that's a big thing that I teach as a consultant, not only with my group classes, but my private consulting, my in-person training, a lot of what I do. And we even talk about it in Gangier every single day, is cultivar allocation. It's a big part of what I bring to the table, because you can't go into a facility with your entire cultivation filled with Blue Dream and think you're going to start a solventless brand.
Right.
One thing again.
Great point. I love making that point. There's washers and there's smokers
allocation.
And cultivar allocation. I haven't heard that term exactly like that. I like
stage.
That.
Now we're starting to see that higher THCA cultivars are going to create more stability, and you're going to start to see you won't want to go into a cart with higher THC.
And again, he knows
more likely to crash out. It's more likely to crystallize or be 100%. Unstable. And then you start creating these cultivar allocations in your head. And then
what a rabbit hole
into the grow. And you're like, okay, so this cultivar should allocate to this, but now let me touch it and make sure that it still has that tactile sensation I'm looking for.
Look, right. Yeah. And absolutely using a lot of that, a lot of those, because so now your selection pressures are completely different than somebody else's selection pressures. And that's what I always find. It's like, what are your goals? And obviously if you're growing to wash, that's going to be different than growing for flower.
Maybe your market's only selling carts. So let's put a cultivar in there that crushes for carts. It melts down way faster and everything else. Terpenes are there. The color of the cart's going to be there, the potency, the flavor, everything. Like thinking about that. And now you look at the hardware side of things.
So you got to listen to the whole show if you want the gems.
You allocate that specific consistency of rosin to that hardware now.
Right.
That porosity of the hardware.
And even kind of building on that, and this is kind of almost a two-part question. It's kind of a polarized question, really. And it starts out with, and this can be, in your life, it can be cannabis related, it can be music related, it can be personal, but what are you proudest of? Sitting here today.
What am I
proudest of?
Proudest of.
Other than Solomon.
Oh man, yeah, I'm proud of my kiddo still.
And obviously that's the automatic answer for any parent. We have to say that answer first.
I'm proud that I'm still here.
Excellent.
In reality, I didn't think I was going to make it much past 37. I was living kind of a wild life, fly by night style life. And I'm blessed to still be here.
Excellent.
And another thing that I'm really proud of is I am recently married.
Congratulations. Excellent. Good job.
Almost a year in, and I'm proud that I'm really still happy.
Yeah, especially considering the challenges you're dealing with as far as
my wife's
you guys
not
can't
allowed
be in
here
the same
United
country.
States, and so it's been really, really difficult. But every single day I talk to her, and I'm really proud that I haven't wanted to sway.
She's a badass. She's a badass though, dude.
Yeah,
she's a
fucking
badass.
amazing.
Like she makes
That's awesome. That's awesome.
She's a bad. You're a lucky man, dude.
No,
She's a
congrats. Congrats. I look, behind every great man is a great woman.
100%.
No offense, Gabe.
Am I-
He's still a great man. He's still a great man. And only recently have you got that good woman.
I'm proud that I'm still motivated. You know?
And that's why I wanted to touch on that early too, because I think this has been a hell of a journey for everybody. And I know,
I'm proud I still wake up at 5 a.m. today wanting to
actually do this.
Well, and it's funny
that's
'cause-
amazing. Yeah.
Well, and it's funny because I mentioned Solomon, but truth of the matter is, you and I both, even though you are married, you and I both as single dads. I mean,
I call myself a single dad here because my wife's not here, and I don't have any
and you don't have, you don't have,
help.
and so to see that and to see, the young man that Solomon's becoming, and to see the work that you put in, especially considering all the time that
we're
you
having
put on the road,
some rockiness right now.
It's teenagers, bro. Teenage boys.
Well, you're Mufasa and Simba's growing up, and I mean, we all had that moment where like, can I fuck him up? It was just a weird sensation. Like, can I? I know your dad was older. We've had this conversation. You're like, my dad was an old man. He's like, I would have felt like an asshole.
I could try thinking I was an old man. Although I've never laid a hand on my son, I definitely had to lift him up.
Yeah. You have to show him the old man strength a little bit.
Just let him know that, like, hey, your pops can still fuck you up, bro. He ain't going to, because that's not how he was raised.
That's important.
That's not what I promote. You know? I would never hit my kid.
But we know how males are.
Sometimes you got to make sure the kid knows that even though you're an old man, you fuck him up.
Yep. Okay, so we know what you're, some of the things you're proudest of. Do you have any regrets? And that's kind of the other end of that polarized question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I've got some business decision regrets for sure. Sure. I regret not listening to myself and my own internal feelings, because a lot of the business deals that I've gotten into that have gotten fucked up royally, I had this inkling that something wasn't right.
You knew. It's tough.
I was like, what? I'm going to make it work, or I'm going to do this. I think that's a big one, is just
that rings really true.
Really, really trust my gut moving forward. And I have been, and it's been going great. Another thing that I regret is putting a ton of energy and time and money into other people's projects.
Right.
I'm really happy that I'm working on all my own projects now, and I'm hopping on a few, and I'm DJing friends events and stuff like that. And I'm definitely still showing love to the community. But something that I'm really, really proud of is moving forward. I have the background of event production. I have the background of being a DJ. I have the background of being a host. So now moving forward, I'm going to be throwing a lot more of my own events. We started Essential Education last year, and it crushed. The feedback has been amazing.
Yeah,
so
I've been watching
Essential Education moving forward. I'm going to be doing some of my own pairing events. I mean, nothing.
So are you doing anything in Vegas? I mean, that's kind of the closest thing, and we'd be more than happy to, if you got anything you're being involved in out there, we'd be more than happy to shout that out as well.
I have not been back to MJ BizCon in about 5 or 6 years.
You lucky bastard.
But this, and really it is a blessing, because it means that I haven't needed
means you
it.
haven't needed
no, that's
it.
actually
Exactly
great.
what I was gonna say.
No, that's actually great.
Business.
Right.
That's how I look at it. But this is the first time I'm going to be back there. I don't know if I'm going to walk the expo floor, but I will be DJing the GLG, the Good Life Gang meetup party, at an undisclosed location.
You heard it here.
Check out the Eventbrite link.
What night?
Message.
What night?
It is, I believe, Wednesday or Thursday night, the 29th.
All right. Nice. Well, you may just see the whole Jug Dealer crew out there. We'll see what happens.
Pull up. I'll send you the discount link or the
please do. Please do.
Was that all
all the Jug Dealers?
No, I've got, the Jug Dealer's going to be there.
I was gonna say I'm not. It's like we're at the range. I didn't count the shots.
But I like to just throw them out there, Gabe. And this one's definitely it's kind of an ending question, but I love this question. And sometimes I think it. Anyway, well, I guess we'll fucking go into it. Screw it. What is, and could you describe for us a perfect day for you?
Oh, and it's funny because it's changed over the years.
Of course.
But I was actually kind of thinking about that, because we have these highlight reels on Instagram. You can kind of highlight anything you want.
100%. It's a fake
People
world.
see the best 30 seconds of your day.
One of these days, I woke up super, super early. I got a wash in. I was done by noon. I went fishing, I think. I hit a hike. I ate really, really well. And I got all my emails and all my work done.
So you just felt like just felt super accomplished by the end of the day.
And that's today.
Today.
What's a fucking
Hey folks,
beautiful day.
here's some old man shit for you.
You know what I mean? Like, 10 years ago it would have been
kidding.
like, oh, I slept with 3 dancers in one night.
Yeah. Got hammered on the beach, took a nap, woke up,
I'm
ate 2
sorry,
hits of
but-
acid.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But this day and day, it's just a little different. So I was
I
thinking
love
about
that.
recently.
I love that. I think that's absolutely.
There might be a highlight reel on my Instagram right now that's like a day in the life of Nick T. And actually, there is one on there. I know for a fact now. And it was a day at the GA campus where I got to tour a farm.
Mm-hmm.
We got to smoke some amazing weed from all around the world from our students. And it just felt like a standard day in the life, which was a blessing because I was like, if this is my standard day in a life,
can you imagine
life
that?
is fucking
And I've
good.
had to, Gabe and I have had these conversations before.
We all have our ups and downs. Sometimes I get depressed and I'm like, oh, I go back to that highlight reel and I was like, oh, that's
You're
a
like, dude,
standard.
that was a day in my life.
Yeah.
So I was going to say, before we get out of here, I want to talk about what you just brought up a little bit, the GA program. And I think it's actually a great wrap up because it really is the culmination of a lifetime of being involved in cannabis. And I know it's actually funny because a bunch of employees who not only I hired, but who still work at companies that I used to work for have now taken the program. They've texted me from the program with pictures and they're like, hey, I'm with
Well, here's what I think, the reality is you guys really you stepped out there, nothing's perfect on the first rip. You know what I mean? And I think it was a big step out there to try and fill a gap that really just like wasn't being filled. So I think that's very admirable because you also open yourself up to a lot of criticism and everything 100%. In this industry. But it also means if people are criticizing you, you're probably doing something right. You know what I mean? If you're in someone's mouth,
people. So
please do.
What is the GA? I think a lot of people are probably wondering. Some people still pronounce it GAR. Even some people aren't on council. But
changes a bit.
Yeah, look, the R is silent, folks.
GA because it's a French word or French redactment,
adaptation, French adaptation,
similar to sommelier.
Of a term that we know called sommelier, and sommelier is a wine connoisseur, somebody who knows wine, who can assess wine, who can taste wine and know what region.
Yeah, I was about to say it goes much farther than just saying, hey, this is a cab or this is a Merlot. This is a cab from this region from roughly this year, that kind of crap. It's amazing. Yeah.
And that palette doesn't just come overnight. They've studied this.
It does not.
And what we've created at the GA or tried to create, and I think we've done well, is a sommelier program for cannabis because although there's a ton of education programs out there and a ton of different universities jumping on board and you name it, small hash classes, this and that, there wasn't a lot of understanding of the assessment of quality and how we do that.
Mm-hmm.
So you say that, and a lot of products were selling according to THC level, but in other gustatory or Epicurean industries like wine, is the wine selling by alcohol content?
Absolutely not. Not unless does that mean Mad Dog 2020 is the best?
The best chocolate 100% cacao?
No.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So that's a big part of what we teach at GA. But not only that, we give an entire background of the industry. So GA students start with an online portion where they go anywhere from a couple weeks to a couple years through this online portion, which covers everything in the cannabis industry from cultivation to processing, to the history, to the terroir, to the law taught by Omar Figueroa. So we have council members. We have about 18 council members, I believe, that all specialize in different aspects of the industry. We all have a great understanding of the rest of the industry, but we have people that really specialize.
Yeah, specialists. Yeah, that's amazing.
Like Omar wrote the law in California. He's on our council and he
not a bad guy to know.
Talks about the law portion of the courses. So the students go through an online portion that really covers the entire gambit of the industry. Even into retail operations, et cetera.
Well, how do you run a business and every end of it? Yeah.
And then once they've finished or gotten close to finishing the online portion, because they should really feel confident and comfortable with all the tests at the end of the sections.
Right.
Then they will come into the in-person training. And we hold this at one venue in the world. And a lot of people are like, oh, I could bring it to Germany, bring it here, bring it there. we really want you to come see the epicenter of cannabis in the United States.
I think that's important.
Is Humboldt County, California, Mendocino County, California,
Absolutely.
the Golden Triangle. So we bring you up into the heart of it in Salmon Creek,
As
California.
we started with this mythical world. Crazy how we can
And
tap
really,
these things
it is
around.
mythical still to me. Every time I touch this
You're
property,
like, damn, I'm
our
here
property
again.
used
Yeah, it's
to be
powerful.
a kung fu dojo.
Whoa.
So there's this amazing feng shui energy on the property.
Killer.
There's running water on either side of the property. The main house is round. It creates this
That's cool.
energy pull.
And it's funny you talk about it because, you know, we talk about these things in the soil colloid and some of these places where you're at. It is one of the most beautiful places for producing cannabis. It's a vibe.
If anybody out there remembers Salmon Creek Big Bud, maybe we got some younger listeners, but maybe some of the older listeners remember Salmon Creek Big Bud. That's where our campus is. It's
Okay.
where that cultivar and that energy became popular.
Wow.
It's such a blessing to get up to the campus every month and teach up there. But we do, during the in-person training, we do a farm tour, and we also do an in-person assessment where we go through our SAP app, which is our Systematic Assessment Protocol app. So the GA has created our own application. Unfortunately, it's not available to the public yet. There are some cool things in the works about other companies we're working with that are putting public things out there that take a lot from the GA program that we're also working on. I can't touch more on that.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
With the GA program,
Stay tuned.
they do the in-person training, which is a farm tour and an assessment with all of us instructors, guiding them on not only how to assess the cannabis, but how to use the app, because the app is something new. And the app basically is going to give you a score on a 100-point score system, very similar to you would see a number rating on a bottle of wine.
Right.
So that's what
That's where it all kind of,
And I am super blessed to be a part of it. You mentioned the haters. There's of course some haters. It's interesting though. Like we've had some things kind of blow up. I wasn't involved in some of the events that some GA members were a part of.
Right. And when you have 18 council members and this isn't a huge industry, some stuff can happen.
Issues, but the guys that created, that drama in the industry have since contacted me. First yelled at me, like, fuck you for taking away from care. And I'm like, bro, I'm in my grow right now. Like,
right.
That ain't me. You ain't
right.
talking to
You're
me,
talking to the wrong guy.
Yeah. I didn't say anything of that. I wasn't there. I was in Colombia or wherever I was during that event. And now I'm working with some of these guys. Maybe some of the guys.
It happens. She comes full circle.
Might be mad at me for that, but I'm now working with some of these people that created some of that drama in the ecosystem. So, I think something to take from that is have proper communication. Don't just yell back at somebody and scream and be aggressive. Be like, hey, wait, what are you mad about? And break it down and be like, actually, I'm on your side, bro. And then eventually maybe you'll see some fucking money from that guy.
Right.
And that's what's really got me through a lot of this. I could have talked shit about one of the first companies that fucked me over way long ago. And then I think later on in life, I sold them a huge equipment bundle and made.
Don't burn a bridge, folks. In fact, that was my final question was literally any parting wisdom. And then of course, please finish it up with where anybody can find you online.
Anywhere people can find
you. That's what we always want to finish up with. So parting wisdom.
Take initiative. This industry is still brand new. So
it's still in its infancy. You're right.
Yep. Take initiative, motivate, do something that's outside of the box, be creative, because even in our day and age, not just in the cannabis industry, we have so much at our fingertips as far as social media and digital.
It's incredible. It's what we're doing right now. Yeah.
To our world that you can create one idea and it will set you and everyone else around you for the rest of your life. So be creative, take initiative.
It'll set you free.
The second part of that question is where can you find
Where
me?
can we find you?
You can take a look at nicktanum.com. I pride myself in keeping my own personal website very up to date. There's actually a ticket link to my most current event on that website that'll pop up. I think it's loading up at the top.
Yeah,
there.
we got our man behind the glass, GRAMBO. It's always taking care of us. There we go.
The ticket link, and that'll take you to the Essential Extracts drop page, which launches High Tea Humboldt, which is my one of the most current events that we got going on here.
You've been doing some stuff with Dougie too?
At the campus. Yeah, I'm going to do some events with Dougie. We just did best of the classics in New York. We're going to be doing best of Los Angeles and California.
I'm excited for that. It's going to be awesome.
Lots of events. But yeah, nicktanum.com. My Instagram is extremely active. I'm posting 20 story posts a day. So NIKKA __T.
You got to say it because you're super shadow banned.
Yeah, you got to put it all in.
You got to put it all in.
In fact, you put it all in, and then you're still not going to see my name. You have to click accounts and then scroll halfway down, and then you'll find me.
Yeah.
But he's there. He's there, folks.
The fact that I still have multiple followers hit me every day is a blessing, and I'm surprised by it because you can't find me. It is not easy to find me, and I'm still averaging.
And people are still following you. They're still finding
200
you.
new followers a day.
They're still following you. Nick, thank you so much for coming out. This has really been a pleasure.
Dude,
I got to know you a lot better. You know, we've met, through the course of this things over the years, and I swear I rode on a train with you. It was definitely in your more Wookiee years. But I swear I rode on a train with you.
It happened, bro.
I swear.
That.
Hell yeah. Signing off from the Jug Den. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for listening. Really appreciate it. We'll see y'all soon.